Let's talk about client complaints. Every Class A, Class B, Class D, and Class E licensee with more than one direct care staff person must have a system for receiving, investigating, and resolving complaints from clients. The system must provide a written notice to each client that includes the following: the client's right to complain to the agency about services, the name and title of the person or persons in the agency to contact with complaints, and the method of submitting complaints to the agency, as well as a statement that the provider will not retaliate against the client because of a complaint. Clients must also be informed of their right to complain by telephone, in writing, or in person to the Office of Health Facility Complaints at the Minnesota Department of Health. A home health agency hotline has been established for consumers to call with concerns or complaints. You can call the Minnesota toll-free home care hotline number Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Consumers may also contact the Office of Ombudsman for Older Minnesotans. This is a state office that's created to be an advocate for the rights, benefits, and care of older persons who need in-home services or other health care services. Clients cared for by home care agencies must be informed of the services available through this office. The Ombudsman Office will help with things like resolving complaints and disputes, providing information and public education to consumers and providers, and advocating for legislative reforms to respond to identified consumer complaints about health care and in-home services. Services are available to the consumers of in-home services, Medicare beneficiaries, and nursing home and boarding care home residents in Minnesota. Ombudsman staff are located in 10 regional offices, as well as in the state office in St. Paul. You can contact them at any one of their offices or use their toll-free number. Another major area of the orientation concerns vulnerable adults and child protection. To comply with Minnesota Statute 626.556 regarding the maltreatment of minors and 626.557, the maltreatment of adults. Professionals and staff of licensed organizations are required to report abuse or neglect of vulnerable adults and children to governmental authorities. A person is considered to be vulnerable if they're unable or unlikely to report abuse and/or neglect without assistance because of impaired mental or physical function or their emotional status. Home care providers and their employees must report suspected abuse or neglect. The staff of home care agencies need not report directly to authorities, but should follow the established procedures for reporting to a supervisor. However, if staff are unable or feel uncomfortable reporting to their employer or supervisor, they may report directly to the authorities. All home care providers are required by law to have a defined reporting procedure. Providers must investigate and report all incidents to the Office of Health Facility Complaints, a local county social service agency, the police department, or sheriff's department. You'll be making an oral report immediately, but then should follow that up with a written report as soon as possible. The written report should include the name, address, and phone number of the vulnerable adult or child, a description of the incident, the date, time, and place of incident, the name of the person or persons who were involved in the incident, what investigation was done, what conclusions were reached, and the actions taken. The name, address, and phone number of the person making the report. Failure to report constitutes a misdemeanor, and the person may be exposed to potential civil damages. And intentional false reporting is also a misdemeanor, and the person may be liable for actual civil damages suffered by the person or persons so reported. but the person who reports in good faith is protected from any civil liability. The last topic that must be included in your orientation is emergency procedure. Home care providers will enter into a service agreement with the client or their responsible party at the time of admission. If services are not provided according to the service agreement, there must be in place a contingency plan which includes actions to be taken by the provider, client, or their responsible party if the services cannot be provided, a method for the client to contact an agency representative when staff are providing home care services, the names of persons the agency may contact in case of an emergency or a significant change in the client's condition, a method for the agency to contact a responsible party for the client if one has been identified, and circumstances in which emergency medical services are not to be called must also be included in the contingency plan. This is consistent with the Adult Health Care Decisions Act and covers any declaration made by the client under that act. These would constitute advance directives such as do not resuscitate orders and living will stipulations. Home health care personnel and clients must be oriented to the agency policy on emergencies. Agencies will have a defined emergency plan for every client, and a copy should be present in the home of every client. Unless otherwise identified, 911 should be called when any adverse change in the client's condition necessitates emergency care. This presentation has been a basic overview of the orientation to home care requirements identified in the Minnesota Home Care Hospice Program licensure rules. We have discussed the following components of the licensure law: overview of the home care statute, home care bill of rights, client complaints and the procedure for reporting them, services for the ombudsman for older Minnesotans, reporting the maltreatment of vulnerable minors or adults, an emergency plan and the use of emergency services. I hope this information has been helpful to you. To further assist you, we have developed a comprehensive manual that includes sample policies, procedures, and all the forms necessary to assure compliance with the licensure rule for orientation to home care requirements. If you need any additional information, please feel free to call us. Thank you for your participation.